Chapter 21. Selina dangled from the stone wall of the castle, her legs trembling, as she dug her tar-covered fingers and toes into the cracks between the giant blocks. Brullo shouted something at the other 19 remaining champions, scaling the castle walls, but from the 70 feet up, the wind carried his words away. One of the champions hadn't shown up for the test, and even his guards hadn't known where he went. Maybe he'd actually managed to escape. Risking it seemed better than this miserable test anyway. She gritted her teeth, inching her hands upward and pulling herself up another foot. 20 feet up and about 30 feet away, flapping the object of this insane race, a golden flag. The test was simple. Climb the castle to where the flag waved 90 feet in the air and retrieve it. First one who grabbed the flag and brought it back down received a pat on the back. Last one to reach the designated spot would be sent back to whatever gutter they came from. Surprisingly, no one had fallen yet. Perhaps because the path to the flag was fairly easy. Balconies, window sills, and trestles covered most of the space. Selina scooted up another few feet, her fingers aching. Looking down was always a bad idea, even if Arobin had forced her to stand on the ledge of the Assassin's Keep for hours on end, to become accustomed to heights. She panted as she grasped another window ledge and hoisted herself up. It was deep enough that she could crouch within, and she took a moment to study the other competitors. Sure enough, Kane was in the lead and had taken the earliest path toward the flag, Grave and Varen on his trail, Nox close behind, and Pella, the young assassin, not far below him. There were so many competitors following him that their gear often got tangled together. They had each been given the opportunity to select one object to aid them in their ascent. Rope, spikes, special boots, and sure enough, Kane had gone right for the rope. She had taken a small tin of tar, and as Selina rose from her crouch in the windowsill, her sticky black hands and bare feet easily gripped the stone wall. She'd used some rope to strap the tin to her belt, and before she stepped out of the shade of the sill, she rubbed a little more on her palms. Someone gasped below, and she swallowed the urge to glance down. She knew she'd taken a more difficult path, but it was better than fighting off all the competitors taking the easy route. She wouldn't want to put it past Grave and Varen to shove her off the wall. Her hands suctioned onto the stone, and Selina heaved herself upwards, just in time to hear a shriek, a thump, and then silence, followed by the shouting of onlookers. A competitor had fallen and died. She looked down and beheld the body of Ned Clement, the murderer who called himself the Sky, and spent years in the labor camps of Calcutta for his crimes. A shudder went through her. Though the murder of the Eye-Eater had made many of the champions quiet down, the sponsors certainly didn't seem to care that this test might very well kill a few more of them. She shimmied up a drain pipe, her thighs clinging to the iron, hooked his long rope around a leering gargoyle's neck, and swung across an expanse of flat wall, landing on the balcony ledge 15 feet below the flag. She fought her frustration as she worked her way up higher and higher, following the course of the drain pipe. The other competitors shuffled along, following Kane's path. There were a few more shouts, and she looked down long enough to see that the Grave was causing a backup before she couldn't manage to toss his rope around the gargoyle's neck as Kane had. Varen nudged the assassins aside and moved past him, easily securing his own rope. Nox, now behind Grave, made to do the same, but Graves started cursing at him, and Knox stopped lifting the hands in a gesture of placation. Smoking Selina braced her blackened feet on the stabilizing bracket holding the pipe in place. She'd soon be directly parallel to the flag, and then once 30 feet of bare stone would separate her from it. Selina eased farther up the pipe, her toes sticking to the metal. 15 feet below her pipe, a mercenary was clutching the horns of a gargoyle as he set about fastening his rope around his head. He seemed to be taking the faster route across the cluster of gargoyles. Then he'd have to swing onto a landing 18 feet away before making his way to the gargoyles, on which Grave and Knox now quarrelled. She was in no danger of him trying to scale the drain pipe to bother her, so inch by inch she moved up, to the wind battering her hair this way and that. It was then that she heard Knox shout, and Selina looked in time to see Graves shove him from their perch atop the gargoyle's back. Knox swung wide, the rope wrapped around his middle, going taut as he collided with the castle wall below. Selina froze, her breath catching. Knox scraped his hand and feet against the stone to catch hold. But Grave wasn't done yet. He bent under the gauze of adjusting his boot, and Selina saw a small dagger glint in the sunlight. How he'd gotten the weapon past his guards was a feat in itself. Selina's warning cry was carried away by the wind as Graves set about sawing Knox's rope from its tether on the gargoyle. None of the other champions nearby bothered to do anything, though Pella paused for a moment before easing around Grave. If Knox died, it was less competitor, and if they interfered, it might cost them this test. Selina knew she should keep moving, but something kept her rooted to the spot. Knox couldn't find a hold on the stone wall, and without a nearby ledge or gargoyle to grasp, he had nowhere to go but down. Once the rope broke, he'd fall. One by one, the threads of his rope snapped beneath Graves' dagger, and Knox, sensing the vibrations, looked up at the assassin in horror. If he fell, there was no chance of surviving. A few more slices of Graves' blade and the rope would be severed entirely. The rope groaned. Selina moved. She slid down the drain pipe, the flesh of her feet and hands tearing open as the metal cut into her skin, but she didn't let herself think of the pain. The mercenary on the gargoyle below only had time to lean into the wall as she slammed onto the creature's head, gripping its horns to steady herself. The mercenary had already tied down one end of his climbing rope around the gargoyle's neck. Now she seized it and tied the other around her own waist. The rope was long enough and strong enough, and the 4 gargoyles perched beside hers would provide enough space to run. "Touch this rope and I'll gut you," she warned the mercenary, and readied herself. Knox shouted at Grave, and she dared to look to where the thief dangled. There was a sharp snap of rope breaking, and Knox's cry of fear and rage, and Selina took off, sprinting across the backs of the 4 gargoyles before she launched herself into the void.